Most people walk past the janitor without ever learning his story. But on one storm-soaked night, a single dad with a battered mop bucket and a heart full of quiet scars stopped to help a stranger on the side of the road, a woman who turned out to be one of the highest-ranking Navy admirals in the state. He thought he was simply offering shelter from the rain. He didn't know this moment would unravel secrets, heal wounds neither of them spoke about, and lead to a knock on the Admiral's door that would change her life forever. And it all began with a broken umbrella and a little girl's laugh. Rain hammered the empty school parking lot like it was trying to wash the world away. The lights flickered, the wind dragged wet leaves across the pavement, and Hayden Marshall, 43, exhausted, and running out of places to hide from life, was finishing the last shift he never asked for. His mop sloshed across the hallway floor while his daughter, Lily, napped in the tiny janitor's closet he turned into a makeshift nursery. Being a single dad wasn't easy, but he'd take this life, however broken, over the loneliness he used to know. Hayden stepped outside to dump trash when he saw her. A woman in a soaked white uniform stood in the middle of the road, clutching a briefcase like it contained her last breath. Rain poured off her like a waterfall. Her car was stalled on the curb, hazard lights weakly blinking. She didn't look like someone who needed help, yet clearly had no one to call. "Ma'am? You okay?" Hayden shouted through the rain. She looked up, startled, not by the storm, but by his presence. Her eyes carried exhaustion that no rank could shield her from. "I'm fine," she said, but her voice trembled. "Just bad luck." Again. Hayden offered her his only umbrella, which barely survived the wind. "Come inside. Storm's getting worse. You'll catch pneumonia." She hesitated. Admirals weren't supposed to accept help from strangers. But then a small voice drifted from the doorway. "Daddy? Who's that?" Lily rubbed her eyes, her tiny yellow raincoat hanging off one shoulder. The Admiral softened instantly, something unspoken shifting behind her stern composure. "Come on," Hayden said gently. "Just until the storm settles." Inside the school, the Admiral warmed her hands by the heater while Hayden made her tea from the break room. She introduced herself as Admiral Grace Elwood, formal, disciplined, but weary in a way that told Hayden she'd been carrying far more weight than the medals on her chest. "Why were you out there alone?" Hayden asked. "Why are you?" she replied. The question cut deeper than he expected. Grace learned Hayden had lost his wife years ago and refused to let Lily enter foster care, even if it meant cleaning floors he once walked with pride back when life was kinder. And Hayden learned Grace had just turned down a political promotion that could have made her career, but would have destroyed everything else she valued. Two broken paths crossing by accident. Or maybe fate. But the real turning point wasn't the storm, or the tea, or the quiet confessions. It came when a sudden knock echoed through the school entrance. Slow, heavy, and urgent. Grace stiffened, recognizing the rhythm instantly. It was a military knock. And it was for her. The knock reverberated through the empty hallways like a warning. Grace's breath caught in her chest. She stood up straight, shoulders tense, her hand pressed to her briefcase as though it contained something she desperately needed to protect. "Stay here," she whispered to Hayden and Lily. But Hayden wasn't the type to let someone face danger alone. "No way. If someone's in trouble, we don't hide in closets." Grace almost smiled, almost. They stepped together to the entrance, water dripping from the ceiling, thunder shaking the old building. When Grace opened the door, two Navy officers stood rigid in the doorway, soaked but determined. "Admiral Elwood," the taller one said. "We've been searching for you." Grace inhaled sharply. "I told you, I'm not accepting the nomination." The officers exchanged looks. "That's not why we're here, ma'am." Hayden watched silently, protective instincts rising. The officer continued, voice lower now. "The senator you refuse to support, he's targeting you. You're being framed for leaking classified information. We need to escort you to a secure location immediately." The words hit her like a blow. Hayden stepped forward. "She's done nothing wrong." Grace looked at him, really looked, and something changed in her expression. She wasn't a commander right now. She wasn't a public figure or a target. She was a woman who had been standing alone for far too long. "I won't leave yet," she said firmly. "I'm not running." The officers hesitated. "Ma'am, that's highly—" Hayden interrupted. "There's a child here. You're scaring her. Sit down. We'll figure this out." The officers, startled by his calm authority, obeyed. For the next hour, they stayed in the school office as Grace explained everything: the corruption, the pressure, the threats, the reason she'd been alone on that road. Every truth she'd been forced to swallow now spilled out, the storm outside mirroring the one inside her. When Lily climbed onto her lap, Grace froze. No one had touched her with that kind of innocence in years. Hayden watched it happen, watched the walls she built to survive crumble under the touch of a child who simply saw kindness in a stranger. When the storm finally cleared and the officers prepared to leave, Grace hesitated at the door. She turned back to Hayden and Lily, the dim fluorescent lights warm on her face. "I don't have many people left," she admitted. "But if you'll allow it, I'd like to come back. I'd like to help. And not just for tonight." Hayden swallowed the unexpected emotion rising in his throat. "You don't owe us anything, Admiral." Grace shook her head softly. "I think I do." Later that night, when she was escorted away, Hayden believed that was the end of their unlikely connection. He was wrong. Because 2 days later, he heard a knock on his own door. A knock unmistakably steady. Commanding. Familiar. When he opened it, Grace stood there, no uniform, no medals, just a woman holding 2 suitcases and a nervous smile. "I resigned," she said. "I'm rebuilding my life. And I hoped maybe I could start here." Hayden didn't speak. He didn't need to. Lily ran past him, wrapping her arms around Grace's legs. And for the first time in years, the Admiral didn't look lost. She looked home.